everyone, and welcome to Two Player Quest. Today I'm going to be reviewing Slay the Spire, the board game. Slay the Spire is a co-op deck building game based on the video game. In this game, you build your deck as you go to fight the monsters and bosses that you meet on your path. Let's get into it. Slay the Spire is a game for 1 to 4 players that plays in 60 to 90 minutes per act. It's at a 2.92 on Board Game Geek, so it's an easy to medium complexity game, and I would say it is a medium luck kind of game. If the cards aren't in your favour, it does make the game a bit harder. This is what the board can look like at the start of the first act. Now, on the left hand side you can see the encounters, the summons, the elites, and the events. On top of that we have the rewards you can gain, as well as the colourless cards. Then we have a token tray, the board, and the merchant board, as well as the combat cards you can gain from the enemies. At the bottom here we can see our player's player board. In this case we are playing with the Ironclad, which is the easiest of the characters. He's basically a fighter. The game consists of a few rounds and there are a few options. You can see on the board there are certain paths you can take and certain icons that you come across. When you come across a combat, like the encounter icon or the elite icon over there, you draw a card from the cards on our left hand side. At the moment I'm only going to show you combat. For encounter you just draw one of the encounter cards, and for a shop you fill the shop board as it says in the rules and you shop. But most of this game will be encounters. Now, for the first encounter there are special cards that say first encounter. When you come to encounter, you draw 1 monster per player, and then you place them as so. Here on the right hand side you will see the 2 characters we are playing with at the moment. The bottom one is the Ironclad, the top one is the Defect. On these monster cards, they will show you what the monster does and any extra things that it needs. All the information for the monsters are on your card. This one, for example, summons. And then you place the summon card next to it. Now, every combat round has 2 phases, starting with the player phase, in which the player draws 5 cards from their deck. And on your cards you can see the cost at the top here and what it does at the bottom. Now, every player has a different starter deck, but a lot of things are the same. Every player starts every round with 3 energy at the top, 0 block, and however much HP he has left. Then you can see that on these monster cards there are dice. This means you roll the dice, and depending on what is rolled, in this case it is a 5, that is what these monsters will do. So in this case, at a 5, this one will attack with an attack 2. And you do that for every monster. So all the monsters are attacking with the attack that is stated with the number 5. In this case, the Ironclad would be receiving 3 damage from these 2 monsters, but we can try to defeat the monsters first. I will now do a turn and get back to you in a moment. As the Ironclad did not have the best hand for attacking, he thought at this point it would be better to protect himself by playing the defend cards. As you can see, he now has 3 defense, which is the amount of damage he would be taking in this turn. The Defect decided to attack the monster that was near him in his row and do some defense, so he as well would not gain any damage. Once all the players have used up their energy and their cards for that round, it is the round for the enemies. This is when they attack. The enemies always attack per row, so the row of the Ironclad would deal 3 damage to the Ironclad, and the row of the Jawworm and the Defect would deal 3 damage to the Defect. Because we had 3 defense, we lose no HP. Then it is the next turn, you take 5 cards again, and you continue on until either all the monsters are dead, or if one of the players loses all HP, that is the end of the game and you have lost. Once you defeat a monster, you gain the treasure that is stated on the card. In this case, that is 1 coin and 1 card from your card rewards. That is this deck here for the Ironclad. You draw 3 cards, and then you choose which of these cards you would like to have in your deck. You can also gain relics or potions in this way. For example, the defect gains a potion as well. And this is how you gain more cards. At the end of every map, there is a boss, which can be seen there. Once you defeat the boss of one of the acts, you finish that act. There are in total 3 acts that you can survive, but you are not always guaranteed to survive. I would say that Slay the Spire is relatively easy to learn, but it will take you 10 to 15 minutes to get the hang of it, and after that you'll sometimes quickly be referring back to the rules for quick questions, but in general you can get going after those 10 to 15 minutes. I would suggest Slay the Spire to, first of all, people who like the video game and want a co-op experience, to play it with others to see how the characters interact. That is very possible, and it's a very good game for that. A lot of things are the same as in the video game. The artwork's the same, the enemy abilities are simplified but the same, so there is a lot of familiarity between the 2 games. There are, of course, some things that have been changed, mainly to simplify the board game. For example, in the video game you do 9 damage with some cards and you get 6 block. In this game, in the board game, you do 1 damage and you get 1 block, just to simplify the numbers basically, to have less maths. They've also changed some of the effects in the game. For example, poison, and I think weakened is also slightly different, if I'm not mistaken. So that is something you will have to read up on in the instructions. If you're not someone who is very familiar with the video game and you want to know mechanics wise who I would suggest this to, that would be people who like games, well, first of all, deck builders, but mainly games like Rhone Invasion or possibly Frosthaven, in which you make your deck and you play cards to do certain things. So you play a card that does damage, you play a card that does defense, you get certain special abilities. If that is something you like, making your deck, evolving your deck through the playthrough, that doesn't happen in Frosthaven, but it does with Rhone, that the deck you make is the deck you want, then this is a very good game for you. We fell in love with this game quickly and hard. We played it at a friend of ours who introduced this to us. We'd never heard of it before. That same night, we ordered a game for ourselves. After that, we bought the video game, and now we also have it on the Switch. Now, what do we love about this game? The main thing we love about this game is the deck building and the fluidity of this game, the amount of choices that this game brings. So there are many paths you can take with every character. Plus, on the board, there is multiple paths you can take. You can choose your own adventure. You can choose what cards you want to add, what kind of builds you want to make. Do I want to make a poison build? Do I want to make a shiv build if you're playing the defect? Do I want to make a different kind of build? There's all manner of options, and because of all of these choices and the choices affect your game, that is one of the things we really love about this game. Slay the Spire plays very well with more players. Because you, in a normal combat, get 1 monster per player, it scales very well. It's nice when you play with more people to see the combinations that the game can bring. How do some characters interact with others? What works well? And all of that brings a lot of enjoyment and fun into the game. So I would definitely recommend it with more players, but even then with 2 players, it is still a very good game. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching our review of Slay the Spire, the board game. If you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, put them in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you next time on 2 Player Quest.